Hey, it's Pastor David. I'm here to talk about broken pipes, failing chillers, and dying projectors. This past Tuesday, Deb Rogers, our COO, came into the office and discovered a burst pipe. The Wesley building. You'll recall the Wesley building is the building with the chapel and Founders Hall and the offices and so forth. And water had flooded out the office just behind the chapel. Now, recall the Wesley building was originally built in the 1940s, so it's about 85 years old. There was a major renovation in the 80s and some cosmetic work in the late 90s. Air conditioning went into the building. I've talked with some of our longer term members who were children in the 60s. The church, of course, is here since 1885, but some of the folks that were here as children in the early 60s. And so we know air was probably put in somewhere around 1960, 1962, and so forth. So the air conditioning is 60 some years old for the Wesley building. Actually, the Wesley building is on an air conditioning system that's tied to the Family Life Center. There's a big chiller up on the roof of the Family Life Center. It's a water system. And so when the pipe burst in the Wesley building, it shut down all the air in the Wesley building because the water couldn't circulate. But that wasn't the only issue. Turns out, also on Tuesday, our chiller up in the Family Life Center went on the blitz, or fritz, however you want to say it. And this has actually been a increasingly frequent thing for the chiller. The chiller, the Family Life Center is about 20 years old. The chiller has been going down more and more frequently. Trustees have been hard at work arranging and seeking and securing a new chiller, about $275,000 for the new chiller. It's on orders. It's supposed to be delivered in the middle of next month. We kind of gone over and laid hands on the chiller and prayed it would make it through Vacation Bible School. All the children's ministries and the nursery and all that, 9 o'clock worship, all in the gym. So we've been praying the chiller would continue to limp along. They're going to have to bring a crane in and put the chiller on the roof. And so we expect that somewhere near the end of September. And so not only was the air not working in the Wesley building because of the burst pipe, second burst pipe in the last 5 months, because again, the building's, about 85 years old. And the chiller wasn't working in the Family Life Center. Fortunately, thank God, a lot of prayer. We scrambled around. We moved Bible studies. We moved, the staff met in the sanctuary in the chancel area. That's on a different air conditioning system. And we kind of got some folks in and they dug through the foundation in the Wesley building and they fixed the pipe that was coming up to one of those air units on the floor, on the wall of the classrooms in the Wesley building. There was a leak in that pipe and they had to get down to the foundation to fix that. And so right now, that was all repaired. They're still working on the water damage and the smell from water intrusion in the offices, the front offices there. Same time, our contractor for the chiller was here every day this week. They said a little prayer to the saint of all air conditionings, and they got the chiller back up and limping along. And so I'm very thankful to say that as of Sunday, well, actually as of tomorrow, because we have a funeral tomorrow, and then Sunday, we will be in both buildings with air conditioning, and that's a relief. We were trying to figure out what we would do with the children's ministry if there was no air, what we would do with worship if there was no air. We come to rely on being cool when we get together at church. You may have noticed a number of other projects. If you were here a couple weeks ago in the 9 o'clock worship, you noticed some big screen TVs. That's because the projector that shows the images up on the front of the worship space had given up the ghost. They do that after so many hours. And so our tech team jumped to the prompt place of securing a used projector of the same type and got things worked up with TVs. You may have also noticed that the front steps of the sanctuary are roped off. The tiles are cracked and slipping, and actually now the foundation upon which the tiles are set on those front steps is failing. Sanctuary was built in 1962, so that means it's what, about little over 60 years old. And so they're going to have to replace the foundation and the tiles, secure the tiles, and so forth. There's just a number of projects at the Winter Park campus. I haven't even gotten into the Reeves campus. Other day, I was in a meeting with trustees, and the bid to put down new mulch at the Winter Park campus is $5,000. That's what happens when you have a city block of buildings. It's not cheap. And we have buildings that aren't new. Our youngest building is the Family Life Center. It's 20 years old. As I said, oldest building, the Wesley building, built in the 40s. Our sanctuary built in the 60s. Asbury building built in the 60s. Renovations have happened from time to time, but nothing within the last 20 to 30 years. And so we have things that are coming due. Thankfully, we have a really strong and active trustee team led by Clark Brown and Dave Johnston, and they have some really key players, Richard Brelford, Charlie Godfrey, and others. I can't go through them all. They have been working on things like getting the lights fixed, switched out in the parking lot, and getting fences installed for security, and keeping up and replacing air conditioners. The plan is not only replace the chiller, but to move away from these wall units in the Wesley building. Something around the neighborhood of $400,000 to $500,000 for the air update in the Wesley building. About $275,000 to $300,000 for the new chiller. So right there alone, just air conditioning in 2 buildings out of 4. Somewhere in the neighborhood of $750,000. So I want you to be aware of that. I want you to say a prayer of thanks for those that work so hard to make sure that we can come to church in comfort, and to just be in prayer for the church as we move forward. This week was meeting with the long-range planning team. We know that a capital campaign is in our near future as we move towards having to take on some of these longer-term projects. We have a beautiful building. Our church has been abundantly blessed. We sit under the shade of a tree that we did not plant. And it's come time now for us to trim and maintain that tree so that others can sit under it in the future. And so I look forward to good work ahead and coming together as a family to take care of, as good stewards, the buildings that God has given to us. In the meantime, I'll see you on Sunday in air conditioning. God bless.